I really like this comment. I think there's a couple of things going on here. I've said in a previous video, I think that men do better with like friendships and in the workplace, and women do better in like relationship. And I think a lot of that has to do with programming. I've worked in both like male dominated spaces and female dominated spaces, and I can honestly say, that it was easier to work with all men, and it's especially easier to work with a guy who's a man who's a manager as opposed to a woman, because a woman will get all up in her feelings, and usually the women who are unfortunately able to crawl up to the managerial positions and higher ups are the mean girls who are catty. And, they just look at, as I said, they'll just, like, look at another woman, see competition, do all these, like, microaggression, passive-aggressive crap, try to get you out of there, like, stuff, and it'll be based off of things that are totally illogical, and I'm sure that men do the same thing, but it's, like, on a different level with women, women don't do well in, like, leadership positions and at work because they let their insecurities and, basically, like, their insecurities and their feelings get all involved in there for some reason. And I think because most women, possibly due to programming, are so codependent, and we're actually taught, like, I caught on to this programming, that we're actually taught from a very early age that our emotional needs are supposed to be met in romantic relationships with men. That women are codependent with men, so like they will go above and beyond to like make it work with men and like be very sacrificial and stuff like that, and I think that's why women do make better partners. But I think it's mostly because I think it's mostly because they're just like codependent, because that's how we're being programmed, is to be codependent and look at men like this is the person who's going to support all my emotional needs, which I don't think is like, I don't think that's right at all. Like, men aren't, like, hardwired to do that, But yeah, that's why women make better romantic partners. However, women are terrible to their female friends generally. Generally, they're highly competitive with their female friends because most of them are, as I said, taught to center men so much by the media, because I think that men actually have it better because it's like a patriarchal society. Men are, the media that men get, it's like, when they're younger, it's like, they'll have like a love interest or whatever, but they'll also have they'll also have like other things, and society has men focus on like their career, their friendships, they don't just tell men like, oh, like everything is about getting married, and all of your everything like will be resolved, and like all of your emotional stuff is going to be it's going to be between you and your romantic partner, whereas women are very much taught to pedestalize marriage, and like that's like the ultimate end goal, whereas men have multiple end goals by society tells men to prioritize their career, prioritize their their friendships with other guys, end marriage, whereas women are mainly just taught to prioritize marriage and their desirability to men, even in today's society. And that is why women do make better partners than men do, not to mention the centuries where women didn't have any rights, so they were essentially forced to get married to men, and men could therefore get away with doing anything they want because these women had nowhere to go, and they essentially had no choice or very little choice. So I think, a combination of all that, women do make better partners, and now that women have more rights, they're starting to see that, like, men maybe don't do certain things, like, in the way that they were, like, especially, like, the way they were programmed. Like, we were very much programmed to believe that men are going to be, like, Prince Charmings and crap like that, and I think a lot of women are disappointed and still in that, like, infantile state of mind where they're looking for that, and they can't face reality, I think that's what's happening. And, women, and I think mainly because society programs women to be codependent, and because historically women have been forced to be codependent, women do make better partners, and then they get disappointed now that we have more freedom, and now have the option to like look at certain things, and that and yeah, like women do make better romantic partners, because we were forced to be codependent, because like a lot of women are programmed to be codependent. And then they get upset that men don't have the same programming, and that men aren't like Prince Charming and crap like that, and a lot of women are delusional. A lot of women live in like fairy tale land where they want men to be like that, and all of their self-worth, even if they go out of their way to get like a fancy degree at like an Ivy or something and have this title, that's still like on some level because they think it'll make them look good to men. And it's not about, like men are taught to like really prioritize their career and stuff like that. They're not like, when women do that, I feel like I've noticed a lot of the time, because they'll still like, they'll have more status and like career, like they'll have more status and all of this than another woman, but they'll still be jealous that she's prettier than them, and like has more personality points or whatever than they do. And like because women like chase like career and status and degrees and stuff like that aesthetically, they're not like, they don't really do it in the way that men do, where men are really taught to prioritize their career as part of like who they are, kind of. Not like you should be like identifying with your job, not like who you are, what you work, but like to take pride in a certain type of pride in that. Whereas women if you see a woman chasing that type of stuff, it's just because she's in her masculine, she thinks it's going to make her look good. And that's why she'll still get jealous of a woman who has less than her, because she's pretty and because she has like a charismatic personality. But yeah, like women make better romantic partners. But they make horrible friends to each other because they're so male centered. They're always competing with each other. Yeah. They're not good to other women. Women are really only good to men. Whereas men are like, they're good with I feel like men are like better friends with each other and stuff like that. And men are really good at, like, are much more professional generally in the workplace. And I think women are like, this thing happened because I've noticed that guys are like less interested, I guess. Not that I've been dating, but like I've noticed that guys are like less interested in pursuing women. And I think this was allowed to happen because women were really, really pedestalizing men to the point that it was like idolatry. Like, yeah, and I think that's why like they like it is true that women are better in relationships, but that's also because, as I said, they're codependent. But yeah, I do think that that's true when they say that, but it's also like there's other things that come to play. Like, it doesn't make women better people because they are still crappy to their friends and the women around them. They're just like really only nice to men. And the other part of this is, I think it's kind of like racism, where society, like at least the media in society, allows like the quote like less privileged group to attack the quote more privileged group. Like, for example, like with racism, like black people, if you ever accidentally got on black people media and stuff like that, every other video or whatever is bashing white people. But white people very rarely, even though technically we can say things about black people, it's very rare that white people will say something about black people because we're more likely to be reprimanded for it by the media and society. Whereas like, because there's like this underlying quote privilege whereas black people can completely go off on white people and be super racist toward white people. And that's because black people are like the less privileged group and like white people are like the more privileged group or whatever. But like two wrongs don't make it right, obviously. So it's not right for, you know what I mean? It's the same type of thing. Like, we live in a patriarchal society, so women can come for men, and men can technically say some things about women, but they are like less likely to because they'll be reprimanded by society because women are seen as the weaker group. And we do have like a lot less rights and stuff like that, but two wrongs don't make it right. I don't think it's right for women to be bashing men, and usually the women who bash men are the most obsessed with them anyway, and are just as pick me as the one who are like overtly boy crazy,